if you're stuck in ancestral conditioning or trauma or beliefs, ask yourself, is this really a divine truth? And is this my truth? Because often we think of something as a truth, but it's not. It's what you were taught. And, we've been taught, like with money, we've been taught that money's hard to come by. Money doesn't grow on trees, save for a rainy day. But that's not the truth. The divine truth, in that divine space, money is simply a frequency. It's energy, which is vibration and frequency. And that's all it is. It's only until it comes into human consciousness that we decide if it's good or bad, if it's abundant, if it's limited.
Enjoy this Wild Soul Gathering production. I'm Dr. Sandra Marie. Pour yourself a really tall glass of spiritual curiosity and join me for the Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious podcast. In the spirit of happy hour, cheers to some new insights, peace, revitalization, and perhaps an aha moment that may change your life. Welcome back, Wild Souls, to Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious, the space where we dive deep, get curious, and expand into the mystery of what's possible. I'm your host, Dr. Sandra Marie, and today's episode is going to shake up your spiritual worldview in the best possible way. Joining us today is the incredible Joy Baker, a next-level spiritual healer and transformational coach known for helping people break free from ancestral trauma, energetic limitations, and the deep-rooted patterns that hold us back. Through her connection to divine light and her multidimensional insight, Joy empowers others to align with the energies of the new earth and truly embody abundance, freedom, and purpose. From generational healing to money blocks to awakening out of the 3D matrix, Joy brings wisdom, warmth, and some real energetic fire to this conversation. So settle in, take a breath, and stay with us, because what she shares may just be the missing piece you've been looking for on your spiritual path. Welcome to the show, Joy. It is a great honor to have you with us here today.
Hi, Dr. Sandra. It's so great to be on your show, and I'm looking forward to where this conversation goes.
Awesome. There are a number of topics I'm hoping to cover today in the show, ranging from the ancestral work, trauma, dealing with scarcity and lack issues, the new earth moving from the 3D matrix to the 5D matrix, and working within the collective. But before we dive into those areas, Joy, a little bit about you. Would you share how you went from being a racehorse trainer to a spiritual healer? And was there a pivotal moment that set you on the path of healing and transformation?
Yeah, very, very different lifetimes. Like many of us, I've lived many
Sure.
lives during this lifetime. And so, yeah, I was with the horses. I'd spent my whole life with the horses. And I don't exactly remember the first thing that got me on the path. I knew things had to change. I was working 7 days a week back then. It was 7 days a week with no break, and it was physical work, and the whole atmosphere on the racetrack was changing. But I do recall meeting a fellow who was actually an exercise rider and the racehorses, and he started talking about personal growth, and that really interests me. That's what got me into it. And eventually, like, I ended up leaving the horses and a 8-year relationship at the same time. So I walked away. Well, when I was 33, I walked away from my whole life. Everybody I knew was on the racetrack. It was just walked away from everything, not really realizing where this path is going to take me, 30 years down the road. And I I went to a few workshops. I developed a vision, and that was, I wanted to be a coach. I had started to realize the power of the mind. And as I realized the power of the mind, I'm like, wow, when you first start on the path, you're getting all those answers. And this is why I'm like this and such. So I decided to want to be a coach. I wrote out that vision. Well, it was another 20 years of doing inner work. And along the way, I found energy work. And that just made sense of everything, how energy fields interact. And we're all one, we're all connected. That just made sense of everything. So I really dived deeply into the energy work, mainly to use it on myself, because as I was on this path, trauma started coming up, repressed memories of, sexual abuse and other stuff. I remember being bullied, and I was painfully shy. I was so, so shy. and didn't know how to interact with people. So I had to learn all that. And as I learned that and learned that energy is what keeps us, connected, then I started to when I started this business, that was when I started to really step into my value. It took me a like it won't it's everything's so much quicker now. It doesn't take as long, but it took me 20 years to really realize that, I do have value and what I offer as value. And that was when I started the business. And that was when my money situation started to change. Like, I've been through 2 bankruptcies, not because I had money that I spent. It was because I thought it was worthless and had no values. So, I was doing a lot of telemarketing and cold calling and such, and never made much money. I just couldn't let myself value myself enough so that I could make money and receive. And so I ended up going through 2 bankruptcies. There's a lot of shame with that. That was my real out of everything I dealt with, my real, sticking block was money. And I've had clients say that. It feels like I've changed everything except for the money situation. But that started to change when I followed my dream and I believed myself and I recognized my worth. So it was really me believing in myself that started to really change everything.
Wow, that's a fascinating story. Do you believe that our soul chooses certain traumas or limitations for our growth?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I believe, yeah, there's that we came here. If you're listening to something like this, you didn't come here to be stuck in the fear-based 3D consciousness. You're a light being, you're here to share the light. And sometimes we need to experience, a lot of pain or trauma or chaos before we'll say, like, I've had enough. Something's got to be different. Maybe it's time to look at this differently, or something comes into our life to wake us up. And yes, I believe our soul is light, and we're here to seed the light. We're here to share the light. We're here to wake people up with our light and beauty that's radiating from us. So I believe the the soul. What I believe is we're co-creators. So the soul, before we ever come here, chooses certain experiences that will wake us up. But then we're also co-creating our existence. So based on our decisions, because based on your decisions, you're going to make choices. Ultimately, that creates your life. So at any choice point, at any point in time, we have a choice to go one way or another, or another way, or like make a decision. So we're co-creating with what our soul's plan is for our life and our desires. That's what I believe.
Okay, that makes sense. So you do a lot of work with trauma and ancestral trauma, and you mentioned when you were talking about how your path unfolded, uncovering suppressed memories. Can you talk a little bit about the influence of suppressed memories on spiritual awakening and healing in
Oh,
general?
that was yeah, absolutely. That was everything. I had 8 years of repressed memories of sexual abuse. And then, as we go through life, there's different memories will come up. And once we get through the really painful ones, we'll start to remember the good stuff. Often we don't remember the good stuff until we go through that journey of pain. And remembering those, so the 8 years weren't all in one 8 year stretch. It was 4 years when I first, started to realize I was sexually abused and what it was about and who it was. And it took me 4 years to really believe it had happened. And then I had about a 5 year, I called the quiet time, and then another 4 years of really remembering really traumatic sexual abuse memories. And I know a lot of people are going through this, especially now. I would just
Yes.
start to feel like I was back on track and feel good about myself and my life. And another memory would come in and I'd get knocked down again. And it was like, I remember saying to myself, like, universe, come on, how many times can I pick myself back up? Like it was just too much. And I remember after one memory came in, I went, okay, I'm not suicidal anymore because I decided I wasn't going to commit suicide because I nearly did in spring 2010. But I said, okay, so I'm going to continue living, but from this point forward, I know I have no value. And I remember saying that to myself and deciding I have no value. Fortunately, I had a workshop scheduled for 3 days later, a 3-day workshop, and I went to that workshop and talked to people and such and was able to turn that around. But if I hadn't, I would have been stuck even longer. The being knocked down over and over and over again, and I know people are experiencing this. So I just want to say you will get through this. You are much stronger than what's happening to you. You are stronger than what up until now has been defining you. You're stronger than your story and your experiences. It's all happening for a reason, and it does not define who you are, and it is not defining your value. And there is something greater for you going forward. How I got out of that, how I was able to turn that around, and I don't think I did this with conscious intention at the time, but it was around, so I started the healing business full time September 2015, and it was around a year before that, 2014, I said to the universe, I said, we learn lessons through pain and pleasure. And usually it's pain. Most of us learn our lessons through pain. Pain gets bad enough, we'll finally change. And I said to the universe, you know what, universe, I'm done with learning my life lessons through pain. I'm ready to start enjoying life and learning life lessons through pleasure. And I don't remember it being, a thunderbolt or anything like that, but I think things just started to gradually change after that because I had made a decision that I'd experienced enough pain in my life, that intense pain, and I was ready to experience life from a higher frequency.
That sounds like it was, quite a journey, and
Yeah,
I
the journey.
I would say that absolutely there are so many people who are experiencing a very similar story and an awareness and really reaching out and looking for direction and assistance with that journey, and that, they feel very alone. It's a very
Mhm,
lonely path, especially probably the beginning, middle parts.
mhm.
How how would you talk about moving from that recognition of being a victim and re-scripting that to being more of a creator in that realization?
I would say the biggest thing that kept me going forward was having a vision, knowing I wanted something greater. Like my whole thing in life since I, woke up was I wanted to make a difference. And I used to say to the universe, just, I want to make a difference. So I just stayed on the path and knowing I wanted to make a difference. And that was at the time I wrote down coach. I didn't even know about energy healing. And that was always there. It was like it was always in front of me, no matter how tough it got, no matter how stuck I felt. It was like, okay, universe, I want to make a difference. And yeah, it was really painful. I mean, it was been 30 years now. So it was there was a lot of pain and a lot of struggle and wondering, and I know a lot of people are there wondering if it's ever going to get better. And especially if they're just starting on their ascension path. And it's interesting you bring this up because I've had a few clients over just the past few days like email me and say what's going on, like why is this coming up, I never felt this way before, or anxiety or just digestive issues. And ultimately it's you're moving to a higher frequency, and that stirs up all, everything within you, stirs up all the energy, things start to move and everything starts to change. So what I would say to anybody who's experiencing that is just breathe. Just breathe. You're going to be okay. You will get through this. If you feel the need to go check, get it checked out by a doctor or something like that, or you need some kind of support, go ahead and like take action on that. But know that you're waking up and you're part of a great awakening right now. People all over the world are awakening. So
Absolutely.
what has taken me 30 years to get here, it's now with everybody awakening, there's so much consciousness shifting and awakening and energy and downloads and upgrades. And so yeah, it's a very chaotic time, but you're going to be okay. My the number one thing I would suggest to somebody is have some kind of a vision or what, and it's one of the questions I pretty much always ask somebody the first time I start working with them is what do you want to move forward to? Even if you're not sure yet, how do you want to feel? You want to feel happy, peaceful, energized, inspired, connected? Like, how do you want to feel? And from there, you can decide, okay, well, these are some of the, you go more into the physicality of it. But you create anyways from your emotions. So if somebody's not sure, I would just say, how do you want to feel? And now I've had people say, well, I'd like to feel happy, but that's just a concept. I don't even know what happiness is. And if possible, go to a memory, even when you were a child, when you felt happy. And happy can be at ease or, whatever. Everybody's got their own version of happy, but it's some kind of at ease feeling. And if they still can't think of any time they felt happy, then imagine how that would feel in your body. Well, and so you say something like, well, if I was happy, I imagine my body would feel lighter and I'd probably feel more expansive and maybe even more flexible. So you take that emotion down to its most basic and choose how you want to feel. And like I said, if you don't have a memory of joy or peace or feeling safe, imagine how it would feel in the body. And for anybody who's thinking, what if I get it wrong? You can't get it wrong. If you're saying, well, I'd like to feel safe, well, I would imagine that feeling safe would feel more relaxed. My whole body would relax and I would feel more at ease. That's feeling safe. As long as you're going from a dense energy to a lighter energy, you're not going to get it wrong. So anybody who's thinking, what if I pick wrong or what if I say it wrong? Let it go. You're not, yeah, you're, as long as you're choosing a greater frequency of lightness, you're on the path.
I love it. That was such a great way of explaining in a very tangible way that shift out of the victim and sort of shifting and moving because it's a process into that creator role of
Mhm,
shifting and changing your life. So I do want to say absolutely the globe is awakening like crazy. It
mhm,
is just it's amazing. It was sort of a concept that those of us who have been sort of working in that field or had a more conscious awareness of the awakening and what was happening and now literally being in it like because it's actively happening now it's it's amazing. The other thing that I'll say, because you've talked, this has been quite a 30 years for you to get to where you're at now, is from my perspective, one of the things that I've recognized is those early on the path, the folks who've been trailblazing their way out of this have really created a space and raised the energy for those who have followed, and that it's not going to take 30 years, not even close. Their I folks' experience with it's going to be very different because it's going to happen a lot quicker. And it's going
mhm.
to happen a lot quicker because of folks like you who really were very consciously aware and put yourself 100% all out there in dealing with it. So thank you and kudos to you. But I just also want to mention that so folks don't feel like this is going to be, a 30-year path because that can seem incredibly overwhelming to someone.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't wanna overwhelm anybody, and I'm glad you mentioned that because, yeah, the energies are so much quicker now, and because we've got a lot of people waking up all around the globe, those are energies that others are aligning with that are connecting us all. So, yeah, it's happening much, much faster. It can also be overwhelming for people because it is happening so quickly and it's like, why is this anxiety coming up or the digestive issues or this intense fear and such. And again, just breathe and know that you're going to be okay and trust is huge on this path. I mean, trust is massive on the path because if you're feeling really scared or anxious and you're stuck in that fear-based 3D consciousness, you're going to be dragged down into that. But when you trust and say, you know what, there are higher powers looking after me. There's the whatever somebody works with, angelic body. I work with Archangel Michael and Raphael a lot, Saint Germain, and whoever else comes in and such. And call on them. And you can do it two ways. You can just say a name. You can just say Michael or Raphael or Saint Germain, and they will be there with you instantly. And you need to call on them. So, because we have, like, they will never just come in unless somebody is about to die and it's not their time. That's the only time the higher beings will intervene. But if you just need help, you need guidance and such, call on them, because we have free will. And as humans, we've all experienced it. We will be, trample on each other's free will or try to control it or have an agenda for them. But the non-physical light beings, they don't do that. So you can just say a name and they will be there with you. Or let's say you want to buy a house and you know what the house is like, the area and everything else. You describe all of that. And I want to buy a house where the energy is just really uplifting and I feel happy and joyful and we're connected and my neighbors are great. So you can say it in detail, but then add this or something greater. This, make sure you add this
Right.
or something greater. Because if you say it in detail and you don't say this or something greater, then it's like that's all they've got to work with. And so it's almost like controlling and very specific. But when you say this or something greater, the higher power will always give you something greater than you can possibly imagine.
I think that that's important to say because, we're very limited in based on whatever our life had been on the earth. We know what we know. We can't appreciate that there's so much greater things that weren't even in our purview. So, very important to say this and something better because trust that there's a whole lot better out there that's beyond any of us, regardless how evolved we are, I believe,
Hmm.
can even, imagine. And the other part I would say with this awakening and the energy and the ascension and, the light that's coming off of these solar flares and how that timeline, and that's all science through NASA got moved up a couple years and we're literally at the peak of it right now. And, I feel like there's also off planet energies out there that are also sending light. And then we have, our benevolent beings. If you think about it, I come from a healthcare background, so this always sort of creeps in with me a little bit. All that energy and light, our physicality is not used to it. So the body, being a dense matter of physicalness, always has to make an adjustment.
Hmm.
Yeah, even with anything, even if, someone gets prescribed a new medications, a lot of times it can take months for people to adjust to that medication for their body and they would have different unpleasant side effects. Say it's the same thing with the light is, you know, and it's funny you say GI symptoms because I've been, I do a lot of reading and, I have a lot of folks that I follow and that's a consistent thing that's been brought up that you're giving validity to for me is people are experiencing a lot of GI symptoms. The anxiety is at a level that, you know, I've never seen, but it's global. And it's just a lot of it, no, is normal. It's our physicality adjusting to all these different lights. And from my perspective, we're so used to the 3D matrix that when we don't know or understand something and we're trying to make sense of it, we tend to go fear based. Now we're moving out of it and shifting that level of belief or thought system and creation to, what's the opportunity? What's the beauty in this? So for releasing emotional frequencies from trauma and other things that people have experienced during this lifetime, what happens if people just leave them unaddressed? Like, how's that going to affect us?
Mm. Good question. You know if you're leaving something unaddressed, if you feel sluggish, if you feel heavy, if you feel off and or numb out. That was my default, my go-to default for years, for decades, was just numbing out, not feeling anything when it became too much for me. And so anything like that, or if you're feeling scattered or unfocused, you know there's something there. But I mean, we live in a society where there's so many distractions, especially with social media, and people love to distract themselves. And this often comes manifests in sleeping issues. If something's there and you during the day you're ignoring it, you get this kind of nagging feeling, or you're feeling maybe heavy or health issues or sluggish, and but you distract yourself, not just with life, but you distract yourself with social media, or you can't get off your phone, or getting caught up in the drama, all the news, and somebody tells you something, you get caught up in that. And you're distracting yourself. And then at night when you go to sleep and everything's quiet and your conscious mind, you go into your unconscious mind. Often that's when people have sleeping issues, because that stuff, that trauma or that stuck emotion then wants to come up. And often how that can manifest, if let's say somebody falls asleep, but there's something there they're not ready to deal with, some kind of emotional issue or trauma wanting to come up. And then what you will do, your mind will do, is just before you go into that deep sleep, that REM sleep, so that you can really sleep deeply and all that stuff comes up. You won't do this consciously, but you'll wake yourself up. The reason being, the fear of remembering that trauma or dealing with that emotion or is so great that the fear wakes you up. Because if you slept soundly, your unconscious self would that would start to come up. That would start to come up. And then you have to process it. So even distraction during the day wouldn't work. So there's so many ways that manifests. Like eventually, if you keep ignoring something, you just don't deal with the trauma or the emotions. Because in the moment it can say, well, I just won't deal with it, especially if that's your default way of life, is just not dealing with emotions and traumas, and that eventually health issues will come up. And because it's stuck energy, it's stagnant energy. We're energy beings. If your energy is stuck and stagnant, that's what, you know, and I have no medical training at all. I know you're a doctor, so, but if energy is
I'm
stuck and
a
stagnant,
nurse.
okay. Oh, nurse. Okay. So my mom was an RN, so as well,
Okay.
she was a
So
nurse.
you know more medical than you think you do if you grew up with someone like that.
Well, I suppose I was, yeah. Stuck and stagnant energy can often be pain or inflexible
Right.
joints, like where your joints just don't want to bend and flex. It can be, sore muscles, different things like that. It's all stuck energy. So if somebody is in that place and there's something they just don't want to deal with, yet stuff is starting to come up, or maybe the health is getting affected, or maybe they're just always tired, that always tired feeling. Ask yourself, if you're ready, if you want it, you can do it really simply. I mean, you can always go as deep into it as you want, but just say to yourself, okay, I'm feeling off. I'm tired of feeling this way, or I want to change, whatever it is. Just say there's something here. So, what could that be? What is stuck? What belief is stuck, or what emotion is stuck? Ask yourself, what belief is stuck, or what emotion is stuck? And trust whatever comes up. So, I actually did this morning. There's been an ongoing issue, and just mild. It's not a big thing, but I thought, what's in that? And was it what belief or emotion? I went, oh, I feel trapped. Well, feeling trapped, I mean, that's a big trauma for me. And so even by saying that, now there's different ways to deal with it. You can just say, okay, send it to the light. So you identify, you acknowledge, just send it to the light. Or you can also use acceptance as well, because when something comes up, it's a part of you, a part of yourself that wants to be accepted. So accept that this is a situation. I feel trapped. Well, I don't want to keep feeling trapped. So I'm going to release that trapped feeling and emotion to the light. Well, I have to make different decisions or ask myself empowering questions so I can move forward from this. And in this case, it was all about receiving love, opening up to receiving, love and the energy of love.
So can you talk a little bit about ancestral trauma? and how that
Mm,
plays into
sure.
the
Yeah.
situation.
Well, I mean, that's really what we're going through right now is the breaking up, the letting go and the releasing of ancestral trauma. So ancestral trauma is when, generation to generation, the same beliefs, thoughts, emotions, behaviors are passed down. Everybody just keeps doing the same thing. And if you look for like thousands of years, we've more or less been immersed in the fear-based limitation of the 3D consciousness. It's like going to a job. Look at how much that has changed these days. So many more people are going remote or entrepreneurial or starting their own business, or things are changing in that area in a big way, where before it was you went out and you got a job. Traditionally, it was men worked, women stayed home traditionally. So these are traditions and ancestral traditions and ways of thinking and beliefs that are all being dismantled right now, which is what is contributing to the chaos, because a lot of people are saying, well, they're in that in between place. This is what I used to believe. This is what my parents believed, or who raised me. This is what they believed. This is how they felt. This is how they behaved. And like the job situation for a lot of people, it's confusing because before you worked for 40 years, you made your money, you retired, you had a nice pension. That was just standard. And now it's all changed, and people are trying to figure out, where am I? What am I about? What do I want to create in my life? So think of uh, women are this, men are that. Traditionally, that's been, we've had a
Right.
role, especially in marriage. Marriage, like that marriage contract has thousands of years of agreements and roles associated with it. In other words, once you get married, the man's traditionally, it's changing now,
Right.
but the man is this way, the woman is that way. And that's all changing now. And that's what's breaking up. So if you're stuck in ancestral conditioning or trauma or beliefs, ask yourself, is this really a divine truth? And is this my truth? Because often we think of something as a truth, but it's not. It's what you were taught. And, we've been taught, like with money, we've been taught that money's hard to come by. Money doesn't grow on trees, save for a rainy day. But that's not the truth. The divine truth, in that divine space, money is simply a frequency. It's energy, which is vibration and frequency. And that's all it is. It's only until it comes into human consciousness that we decide if it's good or bad, if it's abundant, if it's limited. And but traditionally, if money, like if you're found, like my parents went bankrupt once, I went bankrupt twice, and money was, it was, my dad was in sales, my mom until they went bankrupt, I guess around I was 11 or 13, something like that. Mom stayed at home. She was a nurse before she got married. And then she took nursing again and finished out the last, 15 years with nursing. But money, dad was in sales, so money was up and down, and we had to stretch the dollar, all that scarcity
Right.
programming. And so, I went through that until turned that around by really figuring out who I am and valuing myself. But think of like ancestral, all those beliefs of limitation, of this is who women are, this is who men are, about money, about career, about getting a job, all of that, all the things we believe, that's been passed down from generation to generation for hundreds, even thousands of years. Because more or less, if you look back, everything has more or less stayed the same until now. Now we're going through the Great Awakening. Things are really changing rapidly, which can make it such a confusing time for people.
I
But
agree. I think this Great
Mhm.
Awakening, one of the key elements that we're seeing in this is shedding
Mm.
all this programming and beliefs and moving. How would one differentiate between inherited energetic blocks versus those created from their current life experiences?
Really, I think they all come from ancestors, because we've
Okay.
When we come in, especially as those that are light beings, not everybody's coming in as a light being, maybe more so now, but not 40, 50, 60, 100 years ago. When we come in, yes, we're light beings, but then we're taught to be a certain way. We're taught about limitation. We're taught, and we believe that to be a truth. We believe that to be right, and we focus on that. And because we focus on what we've been taught, money is hard to come by, money is scarce. Other people need to be. Other people are like this. I treat other people like this, or don't trust anybody. Any of those beliefs, we focus on that, put our attention on that. What we put our attention on, we give energy to, and that energy will come back to us. Maybe not from the same person, place, event, experience, but it will eventually come back. So as that energy you put out there, whether it's lack of trust or it's limitation or it's fear or any belief comes back to you, you create your experiences from that place. As you create your experiences, you give them a meaning. And all people do this. Whatever we experience in life, it's not a conscious process, but we will give it a meaning. And the reason being is so that we can make sense of our world and then we feel safe. So now you've got your experiences, you've got the meanings you've given those experiences. That creates a story. We all have our story, and that creates our identity. And you're stuck in your identity if you ever say, or if you hear somebody else say, well, that's just the way things are. Things like that always happen to me, or nothing ever changes. It's just like so you start with your conditioning, your focus on that. The mind likes to be right. The mind looks for evidence of that which it believes to be right, because then the mind can feel safe. And the ego job's mind, also called your unconscious conditioned self, is to keep you safe. So to the ego mind, same equals safe. So its job, as you become an adult, when you're a kid, that's a parent's job. As you become an adult, it's the ego mind's job. So we stay stuck in the same, so that we can stay safe.
For someone who's just starting to explore generational or energetic healing, what's a gentle first step they can take after listening to this episode?
Well, the first thing that comes in, because I'm big on this, is be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Know that this is a process. If you're feeling unsettled, anxious, if you're feeling fearful, or if you're feeling not good enough, that's a core belief, not enough for most of humanity. That's okay. It's part of that. Sometimes, the things we awaken to, we remember, it's like, can make us feel worse. It's like, ooh, I really believe that. Or I learned that, or I shouldn't feel that way. Your feelings are your feelings. If you're feeling unsettled, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling anxious, you are more than that. You are, and you will get through this. There are, I mean, if you're just kind of getting onto the path now, this is as good a time as any, because look at what's available because of the
Yeah.
internet. You know, s- uh, talks like this. You can go
Yeah.
anywhere now, and there are words of support. There are words that will, are people that are willing to awaken you, and it's all out there. As long as you have internet access, it's out there.
I,
And
yeah, I
yeah,
would
go ahead.
agree. And honestly, even with this podcast, we have a global following.
Mhm.
So it just, the reach, the availability of the information, the resources, the people, and the reach of it never ceases to amaze me. Um, yeah, I would agree with that. Does do you think does the chakra system play a role in uncovering patterns around money and relationships?
Yeah, yeah, because it's your chakra systems. So you've got the seven main chakras, from the base, the root chakra, to the crown chakra. And so this is how I see the chakras. I like to keep things really simple. There are more detailed explanations, but so the chakras, generally the main ones, the seven main ones, they come in from the back. So along the spine, then the back of the head, and then the crown. And so you're receiving information. So it works, think of it as almost like cycle, I guess. So you're receiving information from your environment. So whatever environment you're in, whatever the energy is, the emotional energy, the frequency, you're receiving information, and you're receiving that information based on what you were taught, what is within you, your conditioning, what you believe, your thoughts, your emotions. If you believe you're going to get sick, if you believe something bad is going to happen, that is what, see, then that goes out. So you're sending that out from the front of you. So you send that out into the world. So then that's a frequency that aligns with that information, that energy. So then you bring that in through your chakras. So your chakras are like spinning vortexes. They're spinning in information all the time. And then you're processing that within you. And it's when, if you're feeling stuck, the same thing, it's like the same, you keep sending out the same information, mean thoughts, beliefs, emotions, what fears or hopes. If you're feeling stuck, you keep sending out the same information. And so you keep aligning with that. That keeps coming in. This is when the same thing keeps happening. We're feeling stuck. If you want your life to change, then if you want something greater in your life, well, if you're listening to this, you're already doing it. Keep looking at your inner world and have a vision. What do you want to move forward to? If you don't have something you want to move forward to, then that's when you go in a loop, because let's say you've got a fear of running out of money. A lot of people have that fear. I know I certainly did for a lot of years, decades. So you've got a fear of running out of money, and you're worried about money, and maybe you're in debt. So you keep looking at the debt, and then unexpected bill comes in, and then you're in that place of despair and hopelessness again. That's energy. You say things to yourself, well, this always happens. Why does this keep happening to me? Just when I got a few dollars ahead, this happened. So you keep using the same self-talk, the same words. Why does it, what's wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? That's what you're sending out. That's what you send out. Energy is going to align with that. Energy is information, it's thoughts, beliefs, emotions, and and that's going to come back in. So you just keep looping. So let's say something happens. Let's again take the fear of running out of money and start asking yourself empowering questions. So you say, okay, this is the situation. Or, right now I'm really low on money, or an unexpected bill comes in. Well, how can I look at this differently to support me in feeling lighter? How can I look at this differently so I can actually open up to receiving money? Is there something else I could do? Could I take action on this? You ask yourself empowering questions. As you ask yourself empowering questions, you are transforming the energy within yourself. You are automatically raising the frequency within yourself as you ask empowering questions. Say, rather than, what's wrong with me, or how did I create this again? Okay, well, universe, there must be a great lesson in here, for me. So, universe, if you could support me with being open to receiving money or bringing opportunities in, something like that. That's the energy you send out. That's the energy that will align with that. And then you bring that back in. Slowly, you raise your frequency. So start with asking empowering questions.
Well, thank you. That's really helpful for individuals to use their own energy fields to rewrite their narratives around success and abundance.
Mhm.
I think that's very, very helpful. So, for someone who is just, they just listened to what you had to say and it made sense, but it didn't make sense, we'll say, they're just feeling so stuck in the scarcity and unworthiness. What's a good first step to help them reclaim their power? Because it's really about reclaiming their power, right?
Yes, yeah, I would have to, that I would sum up my whole path by, claiming my power, divine power. So somebody is listening to something like this and they understand it all, but they're still feeling stuck or helpless, hopeless. First, I would say, when we're in that place, it can feel like it's going on forever and it's never ending and nothing's ever going to change. It is. going to change. This is temporary. The stuck place, the feeling helpless and worthless, it is temporary. Might you might have been dealing with it your whole life. It might feel like it's never going to end, but make the choice that you know what, I'm going to start feeling better. I choose happiness. I don't know what that feels like, but I choose it. So universe, hey, I'm choosing happiness. I'm choosing to feel good about myself. Can you give me some support here and show me how I can do that? And
I
you
love
will
it.
something will show up. Somebody will say something. There'll be a video or you read something and it'll be just what you need. When you choose something greater, when you choose happiness, when you choose to feel safe, even if you don't know what that feels like, you're putting that intention out there and the universe hears you and it will come back to you. And eventually, it might be right away, it might be a day, week, month, but it will come back to you. So somebody right now is feeling stuck and they're listening to this and resonating with the information, but they still feel stuck. Okay. So first of all, helplessness is coming in. So what I would do is and what I did for years, decades, is EFT tapping. If that emotional freedom technique, I would just start saying, if it's helplessness, this helplessness, this helplessness, this helplessness, or this fear, and that releases the stuck energy in the meridians. And when the energy is released in the meridians, because these are all meridian endpoints, when the energy is released in the meridians, the statement might still be there, helplessness, but you won't be attached to it. That's what EFT does. It releases emotional attachment to it. So that's what I would suggest if somebody's in that moment and they're just feeling stuck and they just need that little boost of, I need to move on from this. Realize that that's not your identity. It does not define who you are, I should say. It doesn't define who you are. You're more valuable than what you've been taught.
Yes.
Ask empowering questions and do some EFT, just tapping.
I love EFT, and the beauty of it is it's basically free. I
Mhm.
mean, you can go on the internet, and there is, and I can't think of the fellow's name. There is one person out there who has put out hundreds and hundreds of videos on EFT and the different techniques with the different topics and
Brad
how it
Hank.
made. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
it's it's readily available. I mean, even if you don't have the internet, you can still go to your local library and, there are places that offer that, have that available to people also. So that's a great tool. I love it. I've used it myself, and I have, as you have, had very positive benefit from it. And, some of the feedback we get from the show a lot of times is, you know, resources resources can be limited, and we're talking about, scarcity and those kinds of things. That's what makes this such a great healing technique is it works, it's powerful, it's there for you, and it's free. Um,
Exactly, yeah. Yeah.
so I did want to just jump on that a little bit of what you just shared. So you mentioned a little bit earlier in the show when we were talking, about Saint Germain and some different archangels. You use divine light in you and spiritual guides in your work. What does that connection look like, and what does it look like, and how does it feel for you?
What does it look like? It's more of a beingness, I guess. Like one of the things I do when I work with clients, I work, in this way as well over the phone, but also just from a picture. So they're just send me a picture and let me know what they want to clear and such. And I'll just hear. I'll just connect to the energy. I'm the physical being, but this is where trust comes in. Trust is huge when you're hearing guidance or messages. Is I'll just hear what they have to say and it just flows through me. So I'm just channeling what they have to say. And I would say it's a connection of trust, just
Okay.
trusting them, trusting what I hear.
Okay. And some people get their messages visually, and some
Mhm.
people get them auditorily. So I do want to throw that out. And it's interesting because I'm going to say it's very unique and individual for people. but in the
Mhm.
same breath, it all seems sort of the same also. I know that's a contradictory statement, but it makes sense to me. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, yeah, everybody is different. So I guess my what I clairsentience is, so it's the emotions. So, and that's what I do, is go deep into the unconscious conditioning and identify where they're stuck emotionally. And that's a gift I've been given, is being able to identify frequencies. I don't see them. It's like a sense.
Right.
Identify the frequency, if it's sadness or grief or guilt or shame or anger, and then we just release it. And then I follow the stream of consciousness. So it's like it would be an emotional scene, and it's just trusting what comes in, and trusting. And every time I'm working with a client and I'll go, well, I can sometimes a message will come in a few times and I'm like, that seems really weird. Every time it seems weird, and I finally say to the client, well, this came up, it makes sense to them. So now I've gotten to the point to just trust myself. And even if it's weird, it's like I just go with it.
There you go. So, how do you define the new Earth paradigm, and what does it mean for those who are seeking transformation?
Uh, what I call the new earth, or the fifth dimension, is that's, well, you start with emotional space. We've all been there. We know the 3D space because it feels heavy, limited. That's where struggle is. That's where despair, and we birthed it. We were birthed into that. Our ancestors have been birthed into that. So we all know that space. So that's 3D, and it's fear-based. Fear is the thread that holds everything together in the 3D, and any emotions that align with that. But we all know the feeling of, being sluggish or out of energy. That's all 3D based. So you're in that space when you're feeling that way. The fifth dimension, I'll get to the fourth dimension in a moment. The fifth dimension, or the new earth, is when we felt that in, say, meditations. When you're in a meditation and your whole self is relaxed and you're at ease and you feel that oneness. That's the space of, so the space, divine love holds that space together. That's like the thread that holds it all together. And anything that aligns with divine love, happiness, gratitude, appreciation. And that's why I say, when you're creating a vision, even if you're not sure what you want to create, choose your emotions. Feeling happy, full of gratitude, appreciation, peaceful, inspired, creative, abundant, flow, and ease. I mean, abundance is in the fifth dimension. So, how do you get there from this heavy, dense 3D, fear based place to this place of where you're feeling happy and joyful and connected and abundant and free and light and inspired and creative? It's like getting to that place. I mean, it sounds, feels great. The fourth dimension is like a portal. So it's between, you can think of it as a portal or a pathway between the 3D and the 5D. And that's where you're doing your inner work. That's where you're processing. And so, when you're doing your inner work and you're processing and you go really, really deep, and that's why, that you get the aha moment. That's where most people stop, and where I did for, 20 years. Like, I would go, oh, okay. Oh, I feel good. Okay, that all makes sense. And then you go on, you're feeling good, you're feeling light. But take it a step further when you're doing your inner work and say, okay, I feel so good. I feel light and free and energized. And now, what do I want to create in the fifth dimension? What do I want to create in those higher frequencies? The reason being, you want to take it a step further and say, what do I want to create? And, or if you already have your vision in mind, then take a few moments and close your eyes and connect to that and feel that. If it's buying a house, feel yourself, in your new house, in the area you want to live in, and feel that. The reason for that is, let's say you've done your inner work and you're feeling really good, you feel amazing, and you stop there. And in moments of stress, we default to our conditioned self, to our, unconscious, like the conditioning we were raised in. So we
Yes.
default to that 3D energy. If you grew up in trauma, if you grew up in fear, scared, anxious, there was guilt, all of that, that's your default conditioning. And in moments of stress, we automatically default to that. So now you're feeling really good, but something happens. Maybe you stub your toe. Maybe you go outside and you think it's a nice day and it's going to be raining. Like, it doesn't have to be big, it can be something little. And you will automatically default to that space of heaviness. Now, chances are you're going to default to it anyways, because I mean, you've been living there and your ancestors have been living in that space for hundreds and thousands of years. But ascension, see what the ascension, like the ascension process, what it is, it's not about living in one space that feels really good all the time. We're multidimensional beings, we're cycling through the dimensions all the time. The ascension process is like, let's take money, because everybody deals with money, and you say, just when I got a few dollars ahead, this happened again. Or before, something happened and it would take you down for days or weeks or even months. Now you go, okay, this happened, and you might feel victimized, you might feel down for a while, even a few days, but you go, okay, how can I step out of this? Well, I can ask myself empowering questions. I can ask for, call on Lakshmi, goddess of prosperity, to, turn things around. I can look at this differently. The ask yourself empowering questions. The ascension process is about, you go back to the third dimension, but you don't stay there as long because you have the tools to get yourself out of that place. And eventually, something will happen. You get derailed for a few moments or a few hours, but then you're let go of that and you choose something greater.
Okay. So, how can the listeners recognize where they're at on that 3D to 5D spectrum?
I would say by how they're feeling. If they feel energized and light and they feel optimistic, optimism is a fifth dimensional frequency. If you're feeling creative, let's say you want to start some kind of creative venture, but you're blocked, then it's like creativity is a fifth dimensional frequency. So you're stuck in either third or fourth dimension. So ask yourself empowering questions, and also ask yourself. I still say this like a mantra sometimes, what if it's possible? What if it's possible? So let's say you want to be an artist, you want to buy a house, you want to travel, you want to start a business, you want to quit your job, you want to retire, swim with the dolphins, whatever it is. But all the excuses come in. I don't have the money, I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving, and I don't have the health for that. Start saying to yourself, but what if it's possible? What if bypasses the resistance of your ego mind? It is something greater, you've already decided. So your vision, and saying possible over and over again, opens up the energy within you and your space, and opportunities and possibilities will start to come in. And I've said that like a mantra. I even recorded on my phone for 20 minutes, and I would play it, at night, like when I had, in fact, that's how I got on my first show. I had somebody say a couple years before I ever got on my first show, which was September 2016, first interview like this.
Mhm.
And somebody, we were talking about a healer we both knew, and they said to me, "Oh, you ought to start going on the shows like that." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's never going to happen. I've been listening to them for 10 years, but I mean, who am I? Like, what would I even talk about? Who am I? And nobody's going to listen to me." And all the things we talk ourselves out. But she had planted the seed. She'd planted the seed. And so I started saying to myself, well, what if I could? Of course, the ego mind comes in and tells me all the reasons I'm not good enough. So I started saying like a mantra, but what if it's possible? What if it's possible? What if it's possible? I like to walk. So I'd be out walking on the trails and saying, what if it's possible? And the ego mind would come in and I'd say, yeah, but what if it's possible? And sure enough, when the opportunity came up 2 years later, and a client of mine said, I know the co-producer of this show. I could send them your information. You want me to? I was ready because I'd been saying to it. So it didn't show up right away. But when it did, I was ready. And that's one of the powers of what if it's possible, is when it does, when the opportunity presents itself, you're ready. And so, got on my first show and haven't looked back.
And look at you now. This
Yeah. Yeah.
So how can someone begin, we'll say, to align with the new earth energies in their everyday life? especially when they're still in that 3D job and relationship.
So if they're feeling really stuck, let's say, yeah, 3D job and relationship, so that's their life, because they're
Right.
working a job and if they're living with a person, that's pretty much their life. What do you want beyond that? How would you like if you felt free, if you felt happy, if you felt good about yourself, if you valued yourself, how would you choose to live your life? Would you stay in that job and that relationship? And I'm hearing, in this made up scenario, I'm hearing a no. Okay, then how would you like to live your life? Well, I'd love to travel. Okay, then choose that. Now, it's not going to happen all right away, but you start to choose it. You start to choose something greater. Write it down. And again, it's like having that vision of something greater. And eventually, what will happen as you decide something greater, see your frequency raises. You start spending more time in a higher consciousness and frequency. And eventually being in that really 3D environment, you won't even resonate with that any longer. It's like I've got to get out of that. I've got a client I've been working with for a while now. She's going through this right now. And she's like, "I literally can't stand this any longer." And because she knows what she wants to move forward to, there's still some things she's wrapping up and finishing, but she knows that, I mean, there will be some things she'll have to break off from. But as she raises her frequency more and more, and she's starting to feel more relaxed and doing things like, yoga and meditation and the higher frequency, higher consciousness activities, that 3D environment just doesn't resonate with her any longer, and she's starting to really realize, like, I have to make a big move here pretty quickly.
Okay. Yeah, I find that, people, just as you said, it becomes intolerable, but sometimes I find that the universe, I'll call it the universe, will also put things in the path that will force the issue if you're being resistant to the move. So, say perhaps with that job, someone might end up in a workforce reduction. They
Mhm.
really wanted out, but they just were unable to make the move for whatever reason. There's so many different things that could be attached to that, especially with our programming, that sometimes I find that that plays into it also.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right there. Is that the universe, if you need to make that change, but you're afraid to, because I mean, yeah, it can be fearful. That often, yeah, the universe will say, like, yeah, downsizing at work or something like that. And it's the
Yeah,
very thing you want, but it's not
right.
necessarily easy. Or, the partner will leave or something will happen and it's what you
Yeah.
want. And so the universe says, okay,
I'll
you're gonna
help
go
you
through
out
a
with
little
that.
pain, but yeah. We'll give you what your higher self wants.
Yeah. It's interesting when I think people may not, more times than not, they don't recognize it in the moment. They recognize it absolutely retrospectively. But as we're in this, ascension growth, moving, shifting between dimensions here, I think that people are going to, they are starting to see things more in real time than retrospectively.
Mhm.
So we focused a lot on individuals and our individual self. Let's talk a little bit about the collective aspect of this, because there's a huge part of this is the collective. You offer group clearings. How does the collective energy of a group amplify healing? What does that look like?
It can amplify it, or if you're not aware of it, I mean, we're all part of the collective. We're all connected. And so often, like if you walk through a group of people, you're walking through their thoughts and emotions. Every all thoughts and emotions have a energy form. And so you're walking through that. It's why people in nature feel so relaxed, like if there's no other people around, because you're not walking through other people's energy fields and their thought and emotional, forms. And remind me of your question again. Sorry. How does the
Um,
collective play into it all?
Well, how does the collective energy of the group amplify healing?
Okay, yeah, good question. So it can amplify, and that's why, I mean, this is such an exciting time because there are so many people that are waking up and are choosing something greater. So, and the more people that wake up and that choose something greater, the more that amplifies healing because you're choosing a greater frequency. You're letting go of that fear based frequency, but also environment. And you're choosing the environment of freedom, of health, of vibrancy, of creativity, of flow, of ease, of, and gratitude and appreciation and oneness and such. And look at the power of, I mean, there are, worldwide meditations. I've heard, yeah, there's some groups that have put on like thousands or hundreds of thousands of people in a meditation at a specific time. The power in that, because it's such a high frequency, it's, on the map of consciousness, divine love is 500 and above. So when you're in a meditation and you're all connecting from that higher frequency and higher consciousness, that's what's, going out into the world. And all those that are choosing something greater, all those that want to live in a higher consciousness will align with that. Doesn't matter where they are in the world. So in that case, when you choose something greater, you're supporting humanity. Oh, it doesn't matter where somebody is. It's energy. If somebody else wants that, they will align with that.
It, yeah, it's interesting. There are a lot of global meditations that are scheduled that people do, same date, same time of day globally to address a lot of the global polarities and things that we're seeing out there. And it's amazing the ripple effects of it because it's, all focused on the greater good and the best, very open ended kind of focus with these meditations. And I think it goes, I think it goes beyond the earth. Like this
Mhm,
is rippling out, as you said, throughout the universe, which is the cosmos. And, we don't think of ourselves as that powerful. But we
mhm,
are that powerful. And then when we join in with the collective, because we are all one, we're just experiencing this, you know, s- individual expression of self to experience this. It's pretty amazing. So I would encourage people who are out there, jump on if you think that you don't have power to affect and make a difference and are feeling that hopelessness and looking at you know, the greater situation of our earth at this moment. That's something you can do, and trust me, you're creating ripples. And part of those ripples are even, I think, joy in, we're talking about this being the great awakening. For
mhm.
every person who awakens and continues to be enlightened on the path, it creates ripples for the next person and the next person and the next person.
Absolutely.
It's all absolutely intertwined in the most incredibly beautiful way. Even if you're sitting by yourself in the middle of nowhere, you have a great effect. We're just so powerful. So for you, you have a different level of connectedness and some uniqueness with that. What energetic patterns are you seeing that most commonly in the collective right now?
Uh, Patterns. Well, of course, the fear-based one. Not sure. Like, can you give me more of an idea what you're looking for? Nothing's coming in, so.
Oh, that's okay. So for me, some of the we're so polarized, right? It's the duality of this third dimensional matrix is, it's very strong and it's breaking down. Some of the patterns we're seeing is, just this engagement to hold on to the old and to be stuck in that, you know, inequality and the fear-basedness of what's happening. So both are playing out really big right now.
Mm,
And sometimes you see one more than the other? That's sort of, I guess, where I was coming at with that
Right.
question.
I would say, well, one thing that came in as you were talking is the right and wrong concept. And I think that's what's, keeping people divided is I'm right about this, you're wrong about that. And the other side says the same thing. So yeah, that's a big pattern. And that's, ancestral. That's generational. The right and wrong. It's a concept of the 3D because it keeps people separate and then it keeps us weakened, which is the opposite of like global meditation and oneness. So if you're stuck in that, you can call it pattern or a concept or a structure, 3D structure. The one way to get out of that is be curious. When you're curious, you can't judge somebody else. When you're curious, you can't say stuck in right and wrong. If you're curious, let's say somebody has a completely different point of view from you. And and there's been a lot of that, especially the past 5 years. And you're just convinced you're right. Ask yourself, why would they feel this way? Why would they believe this? Why do they think that? And have open up to new points of view, open up to compassion. And it doesn't mean you have to, jump to the other side. It's not about sides. It's about having compassion and saying, oh, okay, that's why they believe that. It's not what I believe, but I can understand that and have compassion for them and still choose because they believe that. It doesn't mean they're wrong and I'm right or vice versa, but I'm choosing a different path. So nobody's making anybody wrong. You're choosing something different.
Those are very powerful words, and that's a very powerful, important message that's out there. So thank you for that. I love it. And the curiosity, I think, is really raising to the top. It's super important. And, being creator beings, curiosity is a huge ingredient for us to really expand ourselves into our creations and
Mhm,
what it is that we want,
mhm.
that we don't even know that we want.
Yeah, exact. That's yeah. Like if you get curious, and then you can ask yourself empowering questions. And what is it that I want that I don't even know what I want? I want at this time, and curiosity is a fifth dimensional frequency. So when you're curious, creative, you talked about creating in the fifth dimension. Well, be curious.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, awesome. So, Joy, how do you stay grounded and protected while working with, I mean, you're working with some intense energies, both individually and collectively doing your work.
Mhm. I like to walk in nature. I'm big in nature, and where I moved here on Vancouver Island, I'm an 8-minute walk from the ocean, and then there's stairs down to the ocean. So that's really grounding, the negative ions and such. And I've got crystal bowls here. I've got crystals all around. I've got them above my door where I come in on all the windows. And I like to watch in the evening. I often watch something funny, just to de-stress. I'll watch some kind of comedian or a YouTuber, just, not all the time, but just sometimes to just completely de-stress and let go of everything. So, humor brings up the energy as well. Uh, and anytime, well, I don't really I wouldn't say I feel stuck so much, but if I am like I mentioned earlier, there was a bit of a situation. I'll ask myself a question like, "What's going on here? What is stuck in this?" And just trust what comes in. And I said, "Oh, I feel trapped." So, well, I'll let that's a trauma from growing up. So, and I just let that go. You just anything, you can just send it to the light. You just send it to the light. Just send it to the light. You might have to do it over and over and over again several times, even days on end, but you have the power within you to send anything that is not working with, any fear or shame or guilt or anxiety. Just send it to the light and let yourself feel peace. And even if some people say, well, I have to do that more than once or I have to do it over and over again. Yeah, you do because you've been conditioned and your ancestors have been conditioned, in a fear based environment. So you've got a lot of energy conditioning your thoughts, your memory, the space between your cells, everything is stuck in that fear based conditioning, like that's what it remembers. So now you're reprogramming yourself. Like there are biological changes taking place, and so you do that over and over again and choose what isn't working, decide what isn't working for you. Just send it to the light. Like the power is within each of us to
Yes.
change that. But if you feel you're not doing it right or you give up right away, then you're going to just default to what you're familiar with. What
Yeah.
the energy you grow up in and your ancestors grew up in, thoughts, beliefs, emotions, if fear is familiar, if violent energy, if guilt, shame, anger, abuse, if that's familiar, if that's the energy you grew up in, that's familiar. What's familiar is comforting. What's comforting is your comfort zone. So it takes a conscious intention, decision to move out of that. So it's a process of being conscious and aware and choosing that every day.
Okay. I would say it, like you said, it took a long time to get to that level of despair, dysfunction, whatever. It does
Mhm.
take a couple of hot minutes to get out of it for sure.
Yeah,
Would you be open to offering a brief energetic clearing or mini healing for our listeners today just to get a taste of
absolutely.
what's possible when you start releasing these
Sure,
frequencies?
absolutely. So I'll start with first of all, just take a deep breath in, and I'll start with just seeing if there's any heavy energies or density that need to be cleared out. Okay, so yeah, the core belief of not enough, and there's shame stuck with it. So we're going to witness that all the ways you have been programmed, and your ancestors were programmed with the shame of feeling not enough, of having not enough, and then that leads to comparing yourself to others. Let's witness that. Just witness it. Witness and acknowledge. And then, like, gathering all that energy up. You're gathering it up. All you need to do is breathe. Just breathe. That will move the energy through you. We're gathering all that shame, not enough, all of that, and just sending it to the light, sending it to the light. Okay, little bit of anger coming up. So we're just going to witness that anger, see that anger being released on all levels: mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, cellular, and release it throughout all time and space. There you go. There's a little bit of fun and laughter coming up. Okay, we can see the child. So this is the inner child. So, yes, child, we see you, we thank you, and we give you permission, child, to choose something greater. We give you permission to feel good, to feel happy, to feel uplifted. And we give permission to your entire self to feel and be at ease, relaxed, to feel good, to feel uplifted. Just give yourself permission, mind, body, spirit, soul, permission to feel good. Yes, you are allowed to feel good. There you go. Any memories from the past, anything you heard, anything you were told that is preventing you from feeling good or preventing you from feeling happy? Any ways in which you believe you're or were told you're not allowed to be happy? Any ways in which you were told or taught that if you're happy, something bad could happen? Let's witness and acknowledge all of that and just send that to the light. Accept and send to the light. Remember, that's not a divine truth. You were taught that, you were conditioned that, and that's what you believe and have lived as a truth up until now. But that's not divine truth. So you can let go of that. You do deserve to be happy. You deserve to feel good. And you deserve to feel and be healthy: mind, body, spirit, soul. There you go. Your whole self relaxed. There's some happiness bubbling up, and there's a child feels really, really happy, light, free, safe. Yes, in this moment, give yourself permission and allow yourself to feel and know that you are safe. There you go. Sushoka basa wala sushoko babaka. Sushoka basa wala ka. Tuka base babaka. Sushoka basa wala ka. Tuka base babaka. Sushoka basa wala ka. Wala sushoko. Tuka base babaka. Sushoka basa wala ka. Wala sushoko. Sushoka basa wala ka. There you go, my friend. Namaste.
Namaste. Wow, that was powerful and beautiful. I had a lot of feelings with that. So I have to ask you, have you talked light language for a long time?
It was 2, 3 years ago that it came through, I guess. I actually said to the universe for about a year beforehand, I said, I want another tool or something I can, use with my clients that bypasses the resistance of their ego mind. Because even though this is energy coming through, source energy coming through, I'm still speaking human words. And when I'm working with somebody, their ego mind can come in and because they want to control. But light language, what it does, it brings in, that beautiful, it's like the language of the universe, the language of source. And so it brings in that divine energy. But because the ego mind can't understand it, it just kind of goes to sleep and allows that beautiful divine energy and presence to come in, and then a person will receive it. So yeah, I asked the universe to actually open me up to that. So it's been about 2 or 3 years, I guess.
So, because it just, I mean, light language came on my radar a couple years ago. And the first time I heard it, I mean, I was just, I can't even put into words where it sent me. It was such an emotional connection. Did you just, I'm just curious because it's been something personal for me. And I was playing around with it and I thought that I was talking light language, but I wasn't really sure. Like, were you alone and you just started talking light language? Like, can you just share a little bit more about this? I'm super curious.
I don't remember when it first came through. I think maybe just sitting here at my desk, some weird words came through or something. But I remember when I first, kind of realized it was light language and I was out walking and there was nobody else around. I wanted to speak it out loud, but I started to speak it really silently and it sounded so weird. Like actually hear it in my
Gibberish.
voice. I was
Yeah.
like, like I could,
Yeah.
yeah, it was, yeah, it's like, what is this? And like, I knew I'd heard, everybody speaks a little bit different. And I knew something was coming through, but it was just so weird. And then I started doing it with my clients, but it was really quiet and I would ask them about it. And now I just, if it sounds weird to somebody, it's that's, and I had one person say, it doesn't sound like anything. Well, it's not supposed to. Your ego mind is not supposed to know the words because they're not human words.
Yeah. The energy from it is amazing. I just feel like it's something on my path and it's been at top of mind a lot recently. So when you started
Wow,
speaking it, I thought, coincidence? Hmm,
that's
probably
so cool.
not. So that being said, thank you for your willingness to engage a little
Yeah, thank you for
conversation
having
with
me
me
on
on
your
that.
thank you
Uh,
for having me on your show.
no problems. Hey, Joy, for listeners who would like to connect and work with you, what would that look like and how would they connect with you?
Through my website, courageinaction.com. So that's courageinaction.com. And if they want a free ebook, it's Messages from Spirit. So it's channeled messages from Spirit, both written and MP3s. That option is on my website. They would just enter their email. And I'm also on Instagram and YouTube, which I'll send you that information. Maybe I don't.
Okay, I'll make sure I get all of that in the show notes and everything. I love the name of your website. That is awesome.
Yeah, because everything we do, every action we take, even researching something or emailing somebody takes courage. The little
Fact.
actions add up. And, you take those little, tiny little actions, even thinking about what you desire, something greater. that shows courage because you're willing to, step out of that 3D consciousness. So it's all courage in action.
Okay. Anything next on the horizon for Joy?
Eventually, well, I've been asked actually by several people probably writing a book on money. And,
Okay.
but procrastinating a little bit on that one because I'm better at talking, but actually writing, putting it down, that's like a whole new skill for me. I know how to write, of course, but it's just so. But right now, I'm doing a lot of, shows like this, expanding my business, building up my YouTube and such. And yeah, I can see eventually I'll write a book.
Okay, that sounds great. As we're winding up the show, we have 3 questions that I've been asking each of the guests. Take this in fun.
Okay.
Question number 1. If your spirit guides had a theme song that played every time they showed up, what would the song be?
Well, first thing that's coming in is believe in me.
Okay.
So yeah, like there's that's what they're saying. Believe in me, but it means believe in us.
Okay. I absolutely this question has just had the most interesting responses to it, so I love that. That's great. Question number 2. Imagine you're creating a spiritual survival kit for someone just starting on their journey. What 3 items or practices would you put in that kit?
EFT, absolutely. Uh, asking empowering questions,
Okay.
and what if it's possible? With EFT, asking empowering questions and then saying, well, what if it's possible? If you just
Very
focus on those three, they could actually turn their life around.
I was just gonna say that is a very powerful toolkit. Very, very nice. You know what? I might put together a book of the different responses I get to that
Mm.
question because I have yet to have someone not have a very powerful answer, but they're all very different.
Hmm.
It's
That would be really
interesting.
interesting.
Yeah. So question number 3, what do you like to listen to that helps bring you back to center, to that state of inner balance, clarity, or calm?
Mm. Lee Harris is one.
Ah,
He's one of the teachers. Uh, High frequency music, it's just something like Shekinah Rose. And she sings light language. She's on YouTube. She's got clips on YouTube,
okay.
and her name is Shekinah Rose. So something like that. And that brings me to talking to my guides and telling them that I need support grounding. So like I'll see myself grounding, and that with the energies these days, that's I got to do a lot of grounding.
Oh, absolutely. I would agree with that. And you know what? If you don't mind, I'm going to ask you a 4th question.
Okay.
What's your guilty pleasure after a day of spirit work? Chocolate, bubble bath, cheesy rom-coms, or something else?
Oh, chocolate. Absolutely.
Okay.
As soon as I'm done here, I'm going to go have a piece of chocolate. Yeah. Dark
Awesome.
chocolate. Absolutely.
Oh, dark. And I was gonna ask you what kind of chocolate. Dark chocolate is the best.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts before we finish?
To be kind to yourself, believe in yourself. What you've gone through, what you're dealing with does not define you. You are way more powerful and more than that. That divine power, that divine courage is within you. It might take a while to get to it, but you're on the path. And everything you're going through now, it's energy, it's temporary, it will pass. It might be painful, it might be difficult, but man, if you can see what's waiting for you, the light, the beauty, just focus on that and you will get through this.
Ah, that is so beautiful. Joy, much gratitude for all your wisdom, your insights today. You've been extremely open and authentic. Thank you for thank you for being you. And thank you
Thank
for
you.
all that you're doing for everyone and to uplift to uplift the energy in these times. And also, I want to make sure to thank all our listeners out there. I thank you for taking time out of your day to join Joy and myself. Until next time, remember, embrace that wild soul. Thank you. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Wild Soul Gatherings Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious. To learn more about our guests, please go to our website, wildsoulsgathering.com. We're very eager to hear from our listeners what you thought of the episode, topics you might like us to cover in the future, your thoughts on spirituality, questions you may have. Please feel free to send us an email at wildsoulsgathering@gmail.com. This is your host, Dr. Sandra Marie, sending each of you peace and love. Until we meet again, embrace your wild soul.